This is the number one thing that is hard to decide within the Pokemon community. No, it's not, is Gen 4 better than Gen 5? I mean, I think at this point it's pretty clear it's personal preference. I mean, Gen 5 has better music and visuals, but Gen 4 has actual good-looking Pokemon. It is what it is. However, the big question is, Pokemon Black and White 2 better than the prequel? Like, genuinely ask yourselves this and look deep down within your heart and soul. This game is definitely by no means a cash grab like a continuous game franchise that prints the same thing over and over and over again, but the ways in which it improved upon the first game at the potential expense of what made it greater, like more Pokemon from previous generations for example. I mean, at the time, Game Freak's Pokemon designs weren't the greatest, but some would probably like to argue that it's better than most designs today.
Oh, great heavens!
Anyway, we will get into that point later, but in case you haven't gotten the point of this video yet, is Pokemon Black and White 2 really better than Pokemon Black and White 1? First point I'm going to argue, which is the most obvious, is the story. Every Pokemon game prior to this always had the protagonist start in a town and go on a journey to meet and befriend new people, aka Youngster Joey and the gym leaders, whose TMs you steal from. And in Pokemon Black and White 1, you had this skinny, antisocial, mysterious, hunk-looking, LGBT-ass, green-haired dude with a stray cat from Route 2-ass Pokemon telling you his ideals, or truth, I guess, maybe, if you played Pokemon White. And towards the end, you realize, yeah, okay, he's a little weird, but he's got a good heart and means well. And his father is actually just a twisted psychopath who altered his mindset from young, and you sympathize with that after you whoop ass and he goes on a monologue before the end credits play. If you can even call it end credits, because that music pumped us up to go do more post-game content. Now compare that to the start of Black and White 2. Okay, you start off in this small town again like usual, you got your mom, hooray. You got your rival, only one this time. You beat up his Snivy, then go on to meet the washed up champion who gives you generic advice he found on the internet. Some motivational quote video he found, I don't know. Then after all that, you meet the new Team Plasma, with a banger remix track by the way. But you don't meet the quote antagonist equivalent to N in this game until you see Colress up in Castilia's sewers. Almost 3 gym leaders in, and this guy is supposed to be a mystery to what he is trying to do to Pokemon, but in a different way to N. He's a scientist, so probably should have been a dead giveaway that he was evil, but for me I was a bit slow as a kid, so anyway, just like how it was revealed N was tricked by his dad this whole time, his whole life, which is sad. But my point is, right, they both were never truly the villain. Technically, it was always Getsis in both games, the whole time, but N was more impactful to the main story and message of the game, and the whole 5th gen being not black and white, but being multiple shades of grey. The truth remains a mystery, and this world is far from ideal. Simple concepts which was executed for the best at the time. Now look at Colress. You barely see him, and when you do, he ain't giving you a message after riding a roller coaster awkwardly, telling you his ideals or his truths about Pokemon, sticking to the original theme of the game. He tells you not to go fight Team Plasma on the boat, or being weird in a cave occasionally. And then he just lets you go fight Getsis after he tells you how ideal it is to think Pokemon can grow through friendship. I'm not saying I don't like Colress, but the guy didn't care if the world ended as long as he had his research. But it can't compare to someone like N, who we've seen grow and come to understand why he does what he does. I don't think we even know how old Colress is, or why he goes to the lengths he goes to in order to discover the truth about Pokemon's strength. he betrays Team Plasma. My next point is world building. There is absolutely no denying that Black and White 2 has expanded a lot to the maximum potential for what the power of the DS was capable of. The introduction of the new cities and routes, and even more post-game content, and yeah, that's it.
Huh?
Yeah, the game has more content than the previous. I ain't hating on the sequel. I like both. Just thought I'd quickly leave my thoughts on this. Oh, and the music? Banger. Absolute fire, and no other Pokemon game in the franchise comes close. I mean, there wasn't really much they could go off of. It's relatively the same as the prior, just that the main starter town is like more populated. Well, all of Universe seems to have nearly doubled in population actually. So my actual next point is the Pokemon. There is no new Pokemon, which I suppose makes sense because it's almost effectively the same game, but catering to the fans' complaints about older generation Pokemon not being added in the first one is kinda what subtly took away Univa's unique selling point. Or perhaps they were just too lazy to design new ones and found a way to explain how these got integrated into the same region. Or perhaps it was a simple case of the 3DS, Pokemon X and Y. I get it, makes sense where they had to diversify their attention. Technically, I already dabbled into this point earlier. Heck, it was the longest point I even talked about, but the characters just were not on par compared to the rest. Like, why did we not see Professor Juniper as much? I like Bianca as much as the next person, but like, she only the assistant.
Bruh.
Nothing more, At least we got her number for free. Then there is Charon. I don't have much to say about him really. You see him occasionally throughout the game. He gives you great advice like any uncle would. And he's got contact lenses now, so that's pretty cool. But then there is your rival. I forgot what I named him. I think I named him after my younger brother, Caleb. And that was funny. I'm literally battling my brother in a Pokemon battle. But even he doesn't really have much of a personality, other than, I want to get my sister's Purloin back. I think what they were going for was similar to that of Charon in the first game. Like, what's the point of your journey? Why do you want to get strong, Charon? And Alder and even a few gym leaders had to kind of wake him up to see that the strength isn't just the truth, it is also an ideal mindset. That is all what the journey is about, And not the end all be all. But with your rival in the second one, I'm not sure I get this vibe. Maybe because there wasn't enough people I saw telling him this along the way and there wasn't even really many rival battles, but regardless, I see it as a failed version of what already worked the first time. The mom is the mom, simple and straightforward, does the job pretty well, gives you the running shoes and the town map, blah blah blah. By now, I think you finally get the gist anyway, like Black and White 2 improved mostly by having more to do like Pokestar Studios and adding more Pokemon and just more everything really, at a slight expense of storytelling. The same reason we like older Marvel movies isn't because they had better soundtracks or visuals. Those were external factors that only play into a nostalgic role later on when we can look back and go, ah. Whereas later Marvel movies kinda, well, in all honesty, started lacking visually. But most notably was the storytelling. A Pokemon game based on yin and yang philosophies was the last time Pokemon games were at their best, and from there went on a downward spiral for either being too easy, not great stories, or both. Not to say these newer games aren't good, actually, that's a lie. Point is, right, I believe Black and White 2 didn't capture the essence that Black and White 1 had, even though they're both really great games, The butterflies I would get in my stomach, the spark, if you will, the satisfaction of finally beating Elisa for the first time. Well, now that I think about it, for me it was kind of more of Lenora more than Elisa. That hypnosis was more annoying than Volt Switch because all you need to do to defeat Elisa was a Croc Rock or a Paralyze Heal or something like that. Now in Black and White 2, I only get satisfaction at the beginning at the game, when I finally catch a Riolu in the ranch, and towards the middle of the game when I get onto Team Plasma's boat to vibe to the theme for a little bit. Maybe in your eyes it is enough to justify being better than the previous. I'm interested in what you guys think in the comments though, because yes, this is the greatest generation of Pokemon games, and it's, well, kinda close, but I feel like there just isn't one person in the world who can say that Gen 4 was their favorite without that also happening to be their first Pokemon game, as opposed to someone who grew up with Gen 5, like myself, being their first Pokemon game, and be a little biased and say, hey, this is better. It just is what it is.
It is what it is.